in Beijing, when he went to win the gold medal, he tried every different thing to overcome what we call the fear of failure. He was training in Germany, and at one point in time, he even did what we now commonly sort of describe in India as the pizza pole story. So along with German commandos, he climbed up a lamppost. He climbed up a lamppost without even having a wire or a rope around his waist. Why? Because he wanted to get to the top of the lamppost, and if he fell, he would die, just to overcome the fear of failure. And he went there, it was the size of a pizza board. And that's how Abhinav got to, and thereafter, the Beijing gold medal, commitment of a very different kind. When he went to Rio in 2016, and by the way, he lost a medal by 0.1 in a shootout, he had even carried a portable kind of equipment which allowed him to train for surfaces which were unstable. According to me, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest athletes to have been born in India and in the world, and someone who I said is now contributing to sport in very different ways. Put your hands together and welcome Abhinav Bindra.
Thank you very much for that very warm introduction, Boria. It's a great pleasure to be with you, albeit virtually today. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the trip back to Paris. I still feel half Parisian, by the way, after my long trip during the Games, which were spectacular, by the way, and congratulations to everybody in France for putting up a magnificent show. And really looking forward to having this conversation with you and speaking about sport and the large role sport plays in not just nation building, but how it serves humanity in many different ways.
The first question, Abhinav, is what does sport mean to you? You've been an athlete, a gold medal winner at the Olympic Games. Now you wear multiple hats, the athlete's chair, the Olympic Value Education Program in India, plenty more. Can you please describe the power of sport and what sport has allowed you to do in your life as an athlete and beyond?
Well, sport has been my life, and it has shaped the individual I am today. Sport. Yes, I won a few medals at different competitions, but sport taught me a lot of things about life. Sport taught me a little bit about winning, but sport taught me about how to lose. Sport taught me a lot about integrity. Sport taught me a lot about conflict, about learning to deal with internal conflict, but also dealing with external conflicts. Sport taught me the concept of rules. When in life, when is a young boy or young girl or an infant first exposed to the concept of rules? When we play. So sport taught me a lot about rules, about the need to follow rules. Sport taught me a lot about building relationships. The relationships that I was able to build with my family, the relationships I was able to build with my coaches, the relationship which I was able to build with my competitors. And sport really has been, personally for me, the biggest life lesson that I've ever received in my life. And whatever I do, whether on and off the field of play, it is the values that I was able to imbibe through my Olympic journey, the values that I was able to imbibe through sport, keeps me in good stead to face day-to-day challenges of life. And every time I'm faced with a challenge, I think back always to my time in sport and how I would have dealt with a particular situation. And sport continues to date provide me with incredible amount of inspiration. If you talk about what the larger movement or the larger Olympic movement means to me, and I just want to bring in a point right away. We've just witnessed a magnificent Olympic Games in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and now, of course, we have the Paralympics coming up. But the Olympic Games really is the only event left in the world where the world comes together, the world unites. You had countries, you had athletes from 206 national Olympic committees, an Olympic refugee team living in the Olympic village in harmony, in unity, with friendship and respect, yet going out there and competing fiercely every single day. And that, to me, the Games in Paris has left the world with an immense amount of inspiration that it is possible to unite, it is possible to unify. And I think it is a message which of course the Olympic Games provide once every 4 years to the world, but I think it is an important message given the volatile world that we live in today. And there is, for me, no greater event in the world than the Olympic Games and sport. It was really a celebration of humanity. It was absolutely wonderful for me to witness that celebration of humanity. I, of course, enjoyed all the wonderful sport that took place in Paris and all the brilliant performances of athletes from across the world. But what I really remember every day, and I almost miss every day, is that celebration of humanity. To see people from all around the world descend down to Paris and live with friendship, live with respect, and give humanity hope. And that to me was absolutely wonderful. And I almost miss it every day. I miss that time in Paris when we were witness to that every day.
Yeah, Abhinav, this is Vijay, the co-chair with Boria. My question is about the role of business, and we are business scholars in the room today. So, what is the role of business when it comes to sport?
Well, I'll try and answer it differently. I'll answer it, what is the role of sport when it comes to business? All the greatest economies of the world also happen to be sporting superpowers. And I believe that they've become great economies of the world because sport has played a very, very important role in shaping that society. As I said, sport gives you invaluable lessons that you imbibe early on in life. Sport teaches you a lot about work ethic. Sport teaches you a lot about honesty. It teaches you a lot about integrity. It teaches you a lot about the need to follow rules. Sport teaches you a lot about conflict management, about dealing with internal yet external conflict. Sport teaches you a lot about relationships that I talked about, the need to nurture relationships, the need to value relationships. Sport teaches you all these, the greatest values of pursuing excellence every day and really getting to the absolute edge of human performance. And I'm sure nobody in the room is going to argue with me that each one of those elements are absolutely critical if you want to succeed in business. So I do believe that sport has an impact also on business and vice versa. Of course, the business is important to sport because at the end of the day, you need the money to get things going, but it is also about finding sustainable ways to create properties which make business sense. So all in all, I believe that there is a very close relationship both ways, and sport has a lot to offer to business, but of course there will be no sport without business as well. So it is a very close-knit relationship.
Thanks, Abhinav. That leads me to my third question, which is the third sort of theme for this conference. So the nexus between business and sport, but what about its impact on society? I know you began to talk about it, but to what extent can we take this forward? And what is it that we need with this nexus to do for society?
I think we live in a large world, and I think it's important for us to all come together in how we can find meaningful ways to democratize sport, to make sport available to every child on this planet, to give a chance to everyone to experience sport, the sheer joy of playing sport. How do we find a way for every child to play sport, to become more physically active, to be able to become a healthy citizen of this world? How do we ensure that sport becomes a part and parcel of education? we're living in a very disruptive world where artificial intelligence is going to come in and will certainly disrupt how education is going to be disseminated in the years ahead. But one thing AI will never be able to do is imbibe values in young kids. That is something which is experiential in nature. How do we ensure that we continue to shape society with the values that all of us hold dear to ourselves? And the role of sport there, I believe, is absolutely immense. So I think it is about how can business help create opportunities for the youth of the world to experience this great thing called sport. Not experience it just to become Olympians and become champions or to become the best in the business, but experience sport for just being a better human being. And sport has an immense amount to offer us all, to make us just better as people, and better as people every day.
Abhinav, if you could tell us a little bit about the Olympics Value Education Program and the impact on children that you've been sort of forefronting in India, because I think the moment you talk about that little case study of the Olympic Value Education Program, the three pillars, sport, business, society, that stand at the core of this conference gets beautifully articulated. So for the next few minutes, if you could tell us a little bit about the Olympic Value Education Program, how it inspired you to make change to society.
Well, I think when I was an athlete, I looked at sport from a very narrow prism. That was my job. I had to be the best in the world. My world was very narrow. What sport meant to me was also very narrow, because to succeed almost in sport at the global level, you almost have to be selfish, and then you have to be a good selfish to be able to achieve those heights. But after my sports career got over, I was really able to start seeing sport from a very different prism, from the prism of how sport can play a very meaningful role in nation building. And there I saw a great opportunity with the Olympic Values Education Program to deal with many different elements in society. Number one, what is the Olympic Values Education Program? It is an experiential learning program where kids get an opportunity to play sport. Kids get an opportunity to play sport, A, to be physically more active, B, to become healthier, most importantly, to imbibe values through sport. The Olympic values are the core Olympic values are those of excellence, respect, and friendship. And we were able to start this program in two states in India. We started with the state of Odisha. Now it is also working in the state. It's also imbibed in the curriculum in the state of Assam. When we started this program, we started it as a small pilot. It started in about 100 schools. These are all government schools. Kids coming from very humble backgrounds where they really never got much of an opportunity to play sport. But when we did start this program, we saw many different behavioral changes, for example, that happened. I'll focus on a couple. A, attendance in classrooms suddenly increased. Enrollment in government schools increased after the start of this program. That was a huge achievement. I think it increased by about 12%. When we started this program, we all talk about gender equality, and then sports role there is also immense. When we started operations, we noticed that very few girls actually ventured out to play sport. Whenever they had a PE class, they just preferred to just stay indoors in their classrooms. So in order to break this pattern, we decided that all our sporting activities or any OWEP activity that we do will be mixed gender in nature. So when they have to play any kind of sport, it will be mixed team. Of course, when we started this, enforcing this, the boys were quite grumpy the first couple of weeks. You have to now play with the girls, etc. But after a week or so, what was seen was that what was noticed specifically by the boys was that the girls were actually very, very good. And some girls were even better than the boys. A result was that suddenly the boys had newfound respect for girls, which I think is absolutely important. And putting that into play, imbibing that value of respect in many different ways of respecting each other through sport was a very important value to be pushing into these young kids at that stage. After a year or so of doing these mixed team events and mixed team activities, we actually did an inter-school football tournament in about 100 schools in Odisha, the top 100 schools. You'll be surprised to know that 64 of the 100 team leaders, the team captains of these school football teams, were actually girls. Wow. Most of them nominated by the boys. So that was something which was an incredible story which came out quite early on how the power of sport, how this Olympic values education program had that capacity, to make life and to make society more inclusive, of empowering women participation, girl participation in the sport. Another element, which is a very, very important element I talked about, was the role that this program is playing and continues to play in the role of the instructors. The instructors are physical education teachers in schools. If you know a little bit about India, I don't know what the audience is like there, but physical education teachers are probably the lowest rung in the hierarchy of a school system in India. When we started this, suddenly the PE teachers in the schools had newfound respect because this was an Olympic program, and every time the word Olympic is used across the world, it creates enthusiasm, it inspires people, and it did exactly that in the government of Odisha, in the education department of the government of Odisha. They suddenly wanted to make this an excellent program because excellence is a key value of Olympism. So every time a government officer started to visit an OVEP school in Odisha, the first person they asked about was not the headmaster or the headmistress. The first person they asked about was the PE teacher. So that was a great turning point of sorts, that community. You'll be happy to know that one story of one of the PE teachers was actually put as a case study at the United Nations in Geneva, at their headquarters. And then, her picture was at the UN headquarters there for over a year. So that meant a lot to that community, to give the much needed respect to that community. And sporting performance all starts at that school level. Yeah. Here we're all discussing the lack of sporting Olympic success that we've had, but it all starts with the role a PE teacher plays and the relationship a PE teacher has with a school boy or school girl, because that will define the relationship of that kid with sport going forward. So these are a few elements that the OVEP is trying to achieve. It's trying to make the world a better place through sport, and it's not going to solve every problem in the world, but it slowly but surely having a good impact in the state, in these two states. And you'll be happy. I just conclude. You'll be happy to know that by the end of this year, we will be present in about 60,000 schools in Odisha, which is about 7 odd million kids under the program. And we're also looking for a similar scale up in the state of Assam.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating, Abhinav. Two more questions because we know that you've got to leave in 10 minutes. One from me and one from Vijay. And I speak on behalf of the audience. Fascinating story on OVEP. Sport is also soft power. I mean, we know India wants to bid for the 2036 Games. We know India wants to bid for the Youth Olympic Games. There is a significant big business angle to that. For example, a bid would take at least about $100 million. How do you look at that? I mean, the Global South has not yet hosted a Youth Olympic Games or an Olympic Games. How do you look at sport as soft power in trying to showcase a country to this universal Parliament of Nations?
Well, I think firstly, if you base your vision on just showcasing yourself as a soft power, I think it'll be a very, very big missed opportunity. I think any Olympic ambition has to almost you have to see it as a catalyst for change. You have to see it as a catalyst and as an opportunity to develop your country. And frankly, our Olympic vision, our Olympic ambitions should really be embedded in a vision which transcends sport. It goes much beyond the field of play. How can we use an Olympic bid or a possible hosting of the Olympic bid? What do we do to democratize sport in our country? How can we use our Olympic ambitions to give every girl and boy an opportunity in our great country to experience sport? How can sports role be more meaningful to make India a healthier country? How can sports role in education that I've been talked about? How can an Olympic ambition or an Olympic bid be a springboard towards development in that area? You know, we talk about inclusivity. It's not just about an Olympic bid, it is also about the Paralympics that are going to happen. How do we use that opportunity to act as a springboard to make India more accessible as a country? So I think, all in all, I think we're all those concerned involved in India's Olympic ambitions. I'm sure they're already thinking about it. But from my perspective, an Olympic Games in India or an Olympic Games anywhere across the world has to act as a catalyst for change and a catalyst for development. But more importantly, they have to leave a legacy. They have to leave a legacy pre-games, before the games. They have to leave a legacy during the games, and they have to ensure that they leave a legacy long after the games. And if we put this whole process in a thoughtful manner, I'm sure it can be done. And going back to your original question, if we think it through, then of course there will be many business opportunities which will come through it. But if we only see the Olympic Games through one prism, then you will be limiting those opportunities to a great degree. So I think broad basing your thoughts and really using that as an opportunity to make India a better place through sport is the way to go.
Thanks, Abhinav. Final question. We are all business and management scholars, professors here. And we always struggle with one key thing when we want to do research is research questions, research objectives. You know, these are very important for us. So could you name 2 or 3 key research objectives that we should investigate for in terms of research?
It's a tough one, but I think you should base research on all these points. I think what the larger things that I've spoken about on how sport can have a real impact on society, making a nation a more sporting country, a healthier country. How does that directly have an impact on its economy? How does it have an effect on the health of the country? How does sport really play an important role in the reduction of non-communicable diseases? Because that has a very direct influence also on the economy of your country. So I think the role of sport there, I think if you could get into a little bit more in-depth research on those aspects, you will notice that investing into sport is really investing into your youth. It is about investing into nation building. It is about investing into the people of your country. And that investment is simply not going to be limited and should not be limited to your athletes who actually end up representing your nation at an Olympic game or at a World Championship. The role of sport in nation building is much, much, much more significant. And if there is some credible research which can invigorate and inspire countries to start looking at sport very differently, I think will be something which will be a very meaningful thing for all of you to undertake. And I'll be very happy to contribute in any way I can on this.
Fantastic. You have always sort of been a life lesson for me, Abhinav. I mean, you know that. I don't say this for too many people. You've been a role model for me and an inspiration in many, many ways. Not simply as an athlete, but in terms of the advocacy work that you do, in terms of what you are doing for the children of India and for sport around the world, and in trying to showcase the real potential of sport. I'm sure my audience would agree that it was the perfect start to the Sport, Business and Society Conference. Thank you once again. I know how difficult it is for you to fit in new engagements, and I absolutely deeply appreciate your time and for being part of this conference and doing the keynote. Thank you very much, Abhinav Bindra. Can we have a round of applause for Abhinav Bindra, one of the greatest athletes that India has seen? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Wish you all a very successful conference. Thank you for having me.